Okay, I just put it in chat for you, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. I'm just gonna add a couple of hub posts.
Great. Let's see. See a couple of names I don't recognize. Good morning, Alex. Have you been with us before?
Good morning. 1 second.
I hear you. Yep.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good.
Yeah,
How are you?
yes, great. I'm with Italy Consulting. I'm with Patrick today.
Okay. You work with Patrick, and you said you're what kind of consultant?
Yes, the company is Digital E-Consulting. Yeah, we're building the big map prototype.
Ah, I see. Excellent. Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
That reminds me, let me get a message over to John because he sometimes forgets the start time. I want to make sure he's here for this since he's kind of the sponsor of that project. Okay, so Alex and Patrick, you guys are both part of that team. And how about Chaz? Is he part of that team too, or
I
are you?
know. I reached out to John last week. My name's Chas, and I started a company a few years ago called Adapt Bionic, and we've been looking at some ways to partner with nonprofits and turn either into a nonprofit or just serve as a hub to help nonprofits. Like you also, he said to join this meeting, and I'm excited to learn more about what y'all are up to.
Ah, very nice. Okay. And I see that John is joining in now. Good. And Masvi, hello. How are you doing?
Hi there, doing good.
Good to see you. It's been a while. Okay, so we're just getting ourselves together here. Bear with us. Sarah's adding a couple things to notes. Let's
And
see.
I need a minute. I'll be right back.
Okay, so let's add some other things to the notes here. First, under discussion topics here, let me share my screen as I do this. So let's add in about big map project. Get that from Patrick and Alex, and then Chess. Who did you say your organization is named? What's the organization name?
The organization's called Adapt Bionic.
Adapt. Did I get that right? Bionic?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Interested in exploring partnering opportunities, and so we'll discuss that as well.
Great.
Okay, does anybody else have topics we'd like to get on the agenda for today?
Um, I just added the chapter
Post?
audit. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just like to
Chapter audit. Okay. Are you saying you already put that on the agenda somewhere, or you want to add
yeah,
that?
I just added it in if that's okay for us to check in
Yeah,
about
but I'm just looking for where you added it
that. It's at the top.
at the top. Okay. Oh, under action items. Okay, I'm going to move that down to discussion topics. Okay.
And Adam, it's also at the top. Adam and I met about the state assistive tech program. And he wanted me to update everyone on that, even though he can't be here today.
Got it. Okay, so I'm just going to move these down to our discussion topics. All right, great. Now we got a good list. That should keep us busy. John, anything else you wanted to add in for discussion? I don't know if he's hearing me yet.
Me, no.
Okay. All right. Masvi, anything we need to be talking about with regards to the hub or anything else you got going on?
I'm here for the audit thing.
Oh, okay. Excellent. All right. Well, on we go then. Let's look at a couple of hub posts first. Doesn't look like we carried over any action items from last time, so we'll just look at these posts and then get into our discussion topics. All right. This one is from Xavier. Let's see. Just realized he started a post a little while ago without introducing. Okay, so he's introducing himself. printed a couple of Phoenix hands for 2 kids, one for an adult, 2 arms for 2 kids, 1 arm for an adult. Boy, he's been busy. Enjoyed making customizations with his Prusa, allowing to print with several colors, working on side projects. Okay. Now I'm working on a cheap motorized hand. Okay. He's a software engineer by profession. Started a long time ago as hardware and embedded software engineer. And okay, well, great introduction. Sarah welcomes him and invites him to join the Bionic design team, which is a great idea.
He put in links to his projects, so I didn't know if
Well, this is a GitHub link, so I don't know that I can show much. Oh, there we go. Okay, he's got a video. So this is his what he called a cheap motorized hand that he's working on. He's got a lot of good detail here. Let's just take a look at the. Oh, very nice.
I'm in.
Yeah, looking nice. Okay.
It's a kinetic hand-based, self-contained motorized thing. It's dynamite.
It is. Oh, and he's got an app already to control it. Look at that. God, people are just amazing what they're doing.
It's not kinetic, is it?
It's not quite a kinetic because the bottoms of the fingers are kind of more flattened. It looks
And
very
the
similar.
top-
Maybe he just kind of shaped them a little. I don't know.
All right. So listen, Vivek clearly ought to recruit this guy.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And if
that's
Vivek
great.
doesn't, we should. I mean, it
Yeah,
just
somebody's
looks
got
good.
to somebody's got to get this guy roped in. Yeah, it's excellent work. Thank you for sharing that. Let's look at this one. Oh, I think we already took care of this. Yeah, Jonathan got it out of the map, and then Masvi pointed out that we didn't get a chapter logo. So that's kind of on me. I just trained Jonathan to kind of help with badging. And the one for chapters is a little bit complicated because, you know, you got to grab the logo from their Facebook page and then upload it via FTP. And so he might have just not had that part figured out. So I will go in and add their logo. I'll try to do that after today's meeting so that we have that on the map. But thanks for pointing that out, Massey. Okay, on we go. Let's see, I've got a note that Adam was working on identifying some new guest speakers. We're not really tracking our metrics right now, so I'm going to skip that. e-NABLE fund is still sitting just over 100 grand. And we'll talk about some of our funded projects a little later on, time permitting. So let's skip right on down to those discussion topics. Welcome, Patrick and Alex. John, do you want to give a little bit of an introduction here about the project, and then we can get an update from them?
Yeah, perfect. First of all, thank you for coming. Alex, Patrick, and forgive me, is it Alexandria?
Savannah.
Savannah,
Yes.
not even close. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so it turns out that Alex has been involved with e-NABLE in the past, in his home country, which
Venezuela.
Venezuela. Okay, I was
Yeah.
gonna get one not even close also.
Excellent.
But now he and Savannah run a company that has taken on Patrick Campbell, who I know through the Eco Restoration Alliance. As you all recall, in the Eco Restoration Alliance, I used Esri software to create the big map to save the future, which we'll be seeing pictures of, I imagine. If not, we'll put it on screen. But it's a big Google Earth-like thing that highlights ecological success stories all over the world. The vision now is to do it right, because when I did it, it was to produce a prototype, which I think has proven its appeal, and to build in the ability to better recruit more and more cases. As a platform, it would also be a great place for us to have a chapter map as well as a e-NABLE success story map. And so Patrick, who had already put in some time doing good work on the ERA version, the Eco Restoration Alliance version, has stepped up and begun talking through creating a platform that can handle both kinds of data, and in particular, will allow us to start displaying 10 years worth of e-NABLE success stories, as well as an updated list of chapters and as well as social media in one integrated and attractive platform. So he and Alex and Savannah have been interacting with me for a month or two now and have sort of scoped out what it might be like and what it would take. And so that's my background. And I believe Patrick will now take the floor.
Yeah, great. Thank you, John. Thanks for the introduction. Just want to take a quick chance to say hi to all the rest of you. We have been kind of flies on the wall for some of your previous meetings, and it's a super cool group. Since I met John, I've become a little bit familiar with what you guys are up to, but it's been cool to hear you have some of these internal conversations and kind of be a part of what the next steps for e-NABLE are going to look like. So we did prepare a really short presentation, and we do have an interactive wireframe that we want to go ahead and pull up and allow you guys to kind of be guided through that process. If you have some questions at the end, there'll be plenty of opportunity for that. We'll go ahead and jump right into it. Oh, and if the host wouldn't mind enabling screen sharing.
Well, I guess that's me now. Sorry about that. Hold on.
That's okay.
There you go.
All right, I know that these little controls are gonna get in my way later, so I'll go ahead and move them out of the way. Great, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So we did want to give a little bit of background. We've been having some conversations. I know a little bit of the feedback that you've all provided. John's routed that to us through the recordings. So we have done a little bit of user research, kind of indirectly and in conversation with John. And this slide kind of presents some of that scoping work that we did before launching into it. If I can engage this, there we go. So we identified the following value propositions. This is kind of relative to your existing online infrastructure. We looked at the hub site and a lot of these other online resources that you guys have. And we're really trying to answer the question of what does a big map add to that ecosystem? How does it best integrate with it to kind of complement those functions, and what kind of unique value can we extract from it? And we landed on the following 3 items. The first one is to display the distribution and scale of e-NABLE activities around the globe. This is something that's not obvious just from a standard feed. You might know that stories are happening, but you don't know how they're distributed in space or just, again, how many of them are unique. We want to highlight success stories and their relationship specifically to e-NABLE chapters. And then once you have those success stories organized, be able to search and sort through them. And one of the things that you guys asked for specifically was even looking at kind of more popular stories or the ones with the most likes on social media, being able to capture and represent that. And then finally, supporting fundraising and other campaigns. And of course, you guys have the existing Open Collective donations page. So being able to integrate with that in a way that increases support and donations. So our design concept was a simple, clean, single-page application. So everything here without having to do any additional clicks. The format is a linked list. So here on the left would be all those stories in a list. And that would be connected to a map, and these things would be talking to each other. So any kind of selection of a record could zoom to the corresponding feature in the map. We wanted to have 2 editable custom data sets, as John mentioned, both the new stories data, but also the existing chapters data. We didn't want to burden the users with any kind of login. We wanted it to be a really kind of low barrier to access. So anybody who just stumbled onto the website could go ahead and interact with it without having to do any kind of registration. And of course, the design to be accessible for limb deficient and other sorts of users with different abilities. So this will be a data set that you're familiar with. I know it's undergoing some changes, but we do want to bring this into the new environment. Currently, you've got a Google form that's collecting this data. So we intend to just replace this with Esri's version of that, which is a survey 123 form. And that way it can be integrated directly into the application. And then the new data set would be the stories data set, again, supplied by a survey 123 form. Stories, the actual source of that data could originate in mainstream media, something like the New York Times, Washington Post, or whatever, or also the social media, which is kind of the focus of this, at least initial version. And we did talk about having separate raw and clean versions, so that if there is any kind of, anytime you open up kind of a crowdsourced, mechanism for collecting data, there's always trolls, there's always offensive, potential anyway of offensive content. So allow the moderators to see that, filter through it, clean it up a bit before we present it on the big map. So because this data set's new, we wanted to talk a little bit about what a story is. So we're defining stories as just any event that happens within the e-NABLE community that you guys would want to celebrate and promote. So possible examples could be that a new chapter was created, a successful delivery is kind of really the centerpiece, I guess, of what you guys are doing. But then also there are news stories, highlights that kind of generate outside the community that you'd also probably want to call attention to, again, for recruiting purposes and to bring in additional donations. I did mention that we'd have corresponding the link between that list widget and the features in the map. So you'll see similar information in those two places, but where the list widget is more focused on just displaying the attributes that are really necessary for sorting and filtering, the pop-up view would have more of a full story preview. And then there would be links both to the source data, and whether it's in Facebook or mainstream media, as well as an option to share a link to the specific record on social media. So we'll get a little bit more into that as we go. So here's an overview screen of those features, just to call attention to them again. On the top, you have the navigation bar that links to some of those existing online resources that we mentioned, enablingthefuture.com, the hub site. There's also an integration through the donate button here to the Open Collective page. The layers toggle will let you switch between those two data sets, the stories and the chapters. Both of those will have similar search and filter features there. When you click any of those records, as I mentioned, you could zoom to the corresponding point in the map. There are a few additional kind of UI/UX features, point clustering for reducing clutter at those wider zooms, and also the expand collapse features here that we'll look at. And then finally, an add data widget. This is the way that we're going to collect new data, as well as input some of that data that's existing on social media into the big map. So without further ado, we will go ahead and open up the prototype that we prepared for you guys, and this link will be made available immediately after the call. We can go ahead and upload this PowerPoint presentation, and you guys can interact with this. It does not require any kind of Figma login, but if you do set up a login, there is the additional option here to annotate. So if any of you really feel passionate about this project and want to give some feedback, by all means, go ahead and set up an account. Just click on this little chat bubble here, and you can go ahead and click really anywhere on the screen, and then a little comment section will be here on the right for adding comments. And I'll also mention, just for viewing, kind of to optimize the viewability of the application, there's an options screen here that allows you to fit to the screen. I know with some of the different formats, it might not display properly, so go ahead and set to that full screen version. Okay, so I want to focus first on the kind of generic, you stumble onto the page, you just want to explore the existing data that's on there. This toggles menu here at the top, as I mentioned, goes between that stories and chapters data. So every time you click on this, you'll get a different display of those features. We use a similar base map, but these would be different data here, and then you could sort again through the records list here. The Sorry, the search and filter, again, you can search by any attribute of interest. So the date that the story was published, if there was a likes count, you can sort by the number of likes that it's received. The chapter affiliation, you can filter by that as well. All of that would be accessible through the search bar. For those who are ready to actually submit data, they can click on this button here. That will open up a form. This form can be configured basically any way that we like to collect the really pertinent information. So we talked about, location data is absent from a lot of the data that we'd be scraping from social media, but this is an opportunity to actually identify the point on the map. Again, enter any kind of source URL for that content. If it's a New York Times article or a Facebook post, you could add that here. And again, designate any kind of chapter affiliation. When you submit those records, that's going to populate the raw stories database that moderators will then go through a separate process to kind of clean up. But then eventually, once that cleanup process has completed, a new point will generate on the map. It'll immediately be browsable in the list here. Same features are in the chapters map, of course. You'll recognize the existing chapters survey there. The expand and collapse will give you larger screen views of the map here. And of course, the clustering we've just indicated here. You've probably seen this on some of those Google Maps, but this is a feature that's recently been added to Esri too. So we want to make sure that, particularly since this is a global movement, want to reduce clutter as much as we can. All right, so the last thing I'll mention at the top here, we have just existing links. We're not embedding anything. This is just goes straight to the e-NABLE website and hub site. And then finally, the donate is also navigating to the Open Collectives page for receiving donations. So all of that is accessible directly within the application here. All right, so we do have a lot of other stuff that we prepared for you guys. We've got a kind of more elaborate user journey map because this does, with these integrations with social media and these other pages, there are some workflows, I guess, that begin outside of the application. And so to make that clear, we do have prepared a user journey map that we'll provide through a slide deck. But for now, we're just going to open it up to questions. If you guys have specific questions, we're happy to address that. But yeah, I'll hand it off to you guys. Happy to answer any questions.
Looks great. First of all, excellent work, guys. I do have a couple of questions and maybe a request, I guess. First of all, I'm wondering, do we have any reason to be, I don't want to even say concerned, might be too strong a word, but when a lot of the examples that you showed and are showing on the screen now show successful deliveries. We know that we've had, we don't know how many successful deliveries we have. We know there's a lot of them, thousands of successful deliveries. But we also know that as a community, we have historically been very ineffective at collecting data from the community. So we are definitely going to end up with a very partial subset of whatever successful deliveries we have. I'm just wondering, is there any consideration of like putting a map out there that makes it look like we're doing a lot less than we actually have been doing, because we're not going to be able to collect data about the vast majority of successful deliveries we've actually had?
Yeah, so I know that John, when he first presented the vision, there was the hope was that this would create a virtuous cycle of you share your stories, you celebrate those stories, and that in turn motivates people within your community to share more stories. So I think a large part of what we're aiming for here is to really develop this as a recruitment device. We've talked a lot about what that celebration would look like, what would be incentivizing or motivating to your community. There are all sorts of kind of gamification elements. I know you currently use badging and that sort of thing, but really the options are wide open. I think this is something to really talk about. We're currently leveraging the existing content, scraping things off of the internet. We'll see how far that gets us, but yeah, I think there's always going to be room for adding additional features to bring more people into the fold.
Okay, John, I see you have your hand up.
Well, yeah, we have it remains to be seen how much of it we can get. But I have about 1,000 entries that I laboriously scraped from Facebook some years ago.
Okay.
So I think that's the real way of addressing this issue, is to use the fact that we have 10 years of history and pull back all of that past information. And I
So we'll
think
get as
actually
much
that
of
would
that,
provide-
so we'll get as much of that history in there as we can, but it's more about getting people to add their data going forward, and it'll build over time. Okay.
I think we need both.
All right. Can we, and this might already be part of the plan, but can we make sure that this is done in a way that it's easy to embed this within other websites? So if we wanted to have this embedded right within, one of our hub pages or within the new e-NABLE website that we're building, is that doable?
It is, yeah. So you can embed both the entire application if you so desired. A more standard way to do it is if you have just a presentation of the map. The map portion here is an independent item that would be hosted on the ArcGIS Online account, and this is also embeddable. And so any updates to the map would be immediately reflected in any copy that you've embedded in other locations.
Wonderful. Okay. I noticed on one of the examples that you showed where you had the pop-up of the preview, there was a like button on there so people can like a particular story. When it looks at figuring out sort of which are the most popular stories, is it combining the likes that came within the big map with other likes that might have been on social media?
It would not do that, at least in the current configuration. This would be creating an entirely new kind of source for likes data.
Okay.
There are options that we've looked into or are continuing to consider about actually using an export of social media data. And because I've not played with that, I don't know what's contained in that metadata. It might be different for different social media platforms, but certainly somebody's holding on to that data. And so it's just a question of how we can leverage it. Yeah. And then again, it'd be a matter of combining the data from the two sources.
And is it fair to assume that, given what you showed us on the chapters tab here, is it fair to assume that this will then replace our current chapters map in the hub?
That's my understanding. That'd be integrated.
Okay.
With all due respect to Masby, who created our wonderful existing chapters map, but we can indeed use this, use the chapter view to replace what he did do, and then be able to affiliate stories right there with the various chapters when we have information about that.
Anyone else
I
have any
have a
questions?
question. Sorry, did I interrupt someone?
Yeah.
Just about variety and how cohesive it will look. Right now, all of the stories I see are successful delivery, but will there be like a drop-down menu for when a chapter uploads a story to select something different, like chapter spotlight or volunteer project, or is it all successful delivery?
Yeah, so this is because it's a wireframe, it's just
Okay.
making it more economical for development purposes. But so if the form here gives you the option to define what attributes are important to you. So if you, for instance, had a typology for different kind of categories of activities that you're interested in looking at. So I'm not familiar with these, but you mentioned some of these, maybe if they're volunteer based projects, maybe highlighting that. Certainly we did think about associating with chapters, but anything you collect data on can then subsequently become a filterable variable here in the list.
Okay.
So yeah, you can sort it and filter it however you like. You could even change the symbology of the points if you want them to look different. There are lots of options there for calling out different kinds of projects.
So we'd want to probably have some, brainstorming internally to come up with that list of initial sort of categories, because there are a lot of things that we know of that go on, or events that have been organized, partnerships that have been established.
Yeah.
We can come up with a list of what those things are, and then maybe have some ability to manage that list if we need to add more later,
Will there be like an edit and review function where like things like typos and spelling mistakes are able to be, or grammar mistakes are able to be fixed so that everything looks cohesive and professional? And then if someone posts if someone who's not a part of the community comes in and posts some kind of spam, how will that be managed?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we didn't want to bog down the initial presentation with this, but I mentioned that data would originate from two sources, both kind of mainstream media and Facebook. So this is inspired by, we had a conversation with John, and it was really important to him that the moderators be involved in being able to vet and kind of clean up these stories. And so we've given this a lot of thought. In both cases, so just to, I guess, orient you to what you're looking at here. On the left is the kind of media universe, where social media is kind of a little container inside that. Any of the red items here are just representing that the data is still in a raw form, with all the errors, typos, etc. There are two pipelines that we imagined. These would be handled differently depending on where it's originating, whether or not it's in mainstream media or social media. And I'll go through this really briefly just to show you kind of how this works. So if, let's say, somebody found an article that was published in some mainstream news outlet, they can grab the link to that story and go ahead and input it into the form straight on the map. That's not going to be published immediately to the map. Instead, it's going to go through that Survey 123 form into a stories database, a raw data database. From there, we are going to run that through a custom GPT. If I'm assuming everyone in this room has at least played with ChatGPT, there are currently ways to build instructions that will do kind of rote tasks. So cleaning data, or particularly kind of text data, is a really good use case for those custom GPTs. So our plan is to create something that can take an article, maybe summarize it, maybe clean it up and give it a certain kind of presentation. In this case, we're imagining this being tailored specifically to the purpose of creating a Facebook friendly post, because this is just kind of the use case that we were envisioning. But you could switch these out. You could do only 120 characters for Twitter, or you could do whatever makes sense for the particular social media platform that you want it to be representative of. So from there, it would go into a cleaned stories database. The moderators could then take that and post that to the Facebook wall. So we did imagine this being integrated with your existing social media page, particularly that e-NABLE Facebook group. And then from there, that's going to generate a separate link with cleaned data, and that's going to be submitted through a separate form, and that does get published immediately to the big map. So there is the moderator is in the loop. There's all the chance in the world to clean, filter that data, and because there's both the Facebook filters and the custom GPT doing that vetting work, you can rest assured that at least all the things that we're mostly concerned with are going to be rooted out through that process. This is a similar process, again, just using a tag or something to notify the administrators of the story existing on Facebook, and they would manually take that story and input it to the big map. But just to say, there's two ways that this can happen, and they both run through a similar evaluation kind of cleaning process.
Did that
Okay.
address your question, Sarah?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Have you guys had any discussion about, given that this is a global community, have you thought about multilingual capabilities and translation?
We have thought about it. We have not prioritized that for the current stage of development, but it is on the list.
Okay. Might be another good use case for some form of AI assisted approach. I don't know that we need to have everything. We did some testing previously on an AI translation tool called DeepL, and we're very impressed with the ability to translate back and forth between languages and have it come back in the same manner it originated. So it seemed like it performed a lot better than something like Google Translate. And I wonder if there might be an opportunity to integrate some form of AI-based translation API to allow people to flip between languages without having to manually do all of that.
Yeah, exactly. One thing to note here is the way that we've got this configured. We're imagining essentially a one-to-one relationship between things that are published on the e-NABLE website and stories that are published to the big map. So the same kind of content that populates your feed would be the at least initial content for the big map. Not to say that it's only originating from your existing content, but it ultimately would be published there before it ends up on the big map. So if everything's in English on Facebook, everything's in English on the big map. But I agree with you. The translation.
That's actually another consideration, that not all these stories will be originating in English. And so if you pull in a story that has text that's in, I don't know, Portuguese, what happens when you try to feed that through your custom GPT? Is it gonna, is it gonna make all kinds of weird modifications?
That's a good point.
So just something to think about.
Just to jump in, I do think that that's a fairly simple instruction set for the GPT, where if it's in a language other than English, to first translate it to English and then spit out that English version.
Okay. Well, it's very exciting. We're running a little bit late on time here, so I think we're going to have to move on. Does anybody else have any other questions, or did you guys have anything else you wanted to share to wrap this up?
I'll say that I've been impressed by the homework and the polish of what this group has been doing. I think
Yeah.
this constitutes the deliverable for the initial $1,000. I've been round and round with Patrick and Alex and Savannah. So I don't have much to add. I think they're going to come back to us with an estimate of what it would take to make this be true. That'll be a separate decision, and that one I'm confident will go beyond our $1,000 discretionary
So that'll go through Lumio.
process. So that'll become a Lumio proposal that we'll vote on. But I predict the community, if the price is reasonable, the community will likely embrace it. It's a grand vision. Masby, we haven't heard from you. I wonder if you have any comments or concerns.
I'll probably just sit this one out.
Okay. All right. So I think that's it for now on this topic.
Okay, so let's move on to Chas, who wanted to talk about potential partnering opportunities for Adapt Bionic.
Yeah, hard to follow that presentation. I don't have anything nearly prepared like that. I just wanted to introduce myself. So I'm Chas. Nice to meet you all. That map looks great, by the way. I'm excited to see what happens with that. Adapt Bionic was a idea that I started when I was in grad school at UNC. We ended up winning a small grant from NC Idea, which is a small entrepreneurial grant in North Carolina, to essentially validate this technology that we developed, which was specifically focused on athletes with upper limb differences. And we were focusing on golf as a specific niche, just because of some contacts that my business partner had. That was several years ago. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Chaz, but are you saying that you're the creator of the kinetics thing that we looked at a minute ago? What were you referring to just now?
No, I'm sorry. So Adapt Bionic, we came up with a prosthetic attachment for people who already are using prosthetic devices, but are having a hard time gripping small, like sports clubs, like lacrosse sticks and golf clubs. That was our MVP for that. And what happened, we worked with a team of doctors from UNC and Duke, and that specific device that we built, there were some major concerns with that. And like all startups, there was a big cliff of funding that we would have needed to, properly medically validate this. It forced us to go back to the drawing board. Startups are rocky journeys. So my co-founder is no longer involved with Adapt Bionic. And after speaking with some mentors, we were exploring the idea of this new technology is not something that we as a for-profit startup really feel comfortable with or even are interested in going with, but we are interested in the concept of becoming a nonprofit that can either support existing organizations like Enabling the Future, or maybe we're not a nonprofit and we just become a chapter member, but we do have these resources of 3D printers. I will say one maybe difference in our focus versus your focus is we're more focused specifically on sports and athletics and helping people with injuries and limb differences participate in those sports and have their coaches meaningfully, evaluate their process and are able to help them in that. So a little bit different, but I see a lot of overlap as well. And just interested in learning more about how you all operate.
Chess, do you have anything that you can maybe, I don't know, share your screen to show us examples of your current devices or what kinds of solutions have been developed, just so we can better understand what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I don't have anything at the moment that I could pull up. I could dig through my computer and send you some of our old slide decks that we were sharing for old presentations.
Okay.
So give us a word picture then, Chaz, because I frankly am a little confused about what the product or technology is.
Yeah. So, and the short answer is right now, there is no technology that we would want to put out there and say, hey, use this, right? We were working on a device that would attach from an existing prosthetic through the wrist part that would have a clasping mechanism that would grip these long clubs, because part of the issue with leveraging a hand around these clubs is that you're not getting that stability. And with that stability, you're able to actually like leverage your force on that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I raised my hand not to interrupt, but so is this golf clubs? I think you're assuming that we remember a previous conversation.
No, he said that before, John. You might have missed it. They do a
I
lot
was
of work
late.
for
I beg your pardon.
athletes, and he said specifically golfers has been a focus. Yeah.
Now
That
I'm
was our
getting it.
initial focus, but to be clear, we've sort of expanded since then. That's how we started. Right now we're looking at other ways. So we have people with 3D printers that tomorrow could print Enabling the Future devices, but I'm just curious in the other ways we could work together as well. So kind of an open field at this point, but I appreciate you inviting me to this to learn more.
Got it now. Thank you. So Chaz, the notion of a community of people who want to make devices, and in particular, a community of people connected to people who want to engage in sports activities and who need adapters either for their existing prosthetics or to ours, is entirely within scope, and would be quite welcome. We don't have a territorial or proprietary bent, so while we would be delighted to consider adding your offerings to our own offerings, we would also be quite happy in just talking with you about what you might do with your own nonprofit, and then affiliating with you if you like. So we're at your service, and we appreciate what you're trying to do.
Yeah, well, I appreciate what you all are doing. I think it's very cool.
Excellent. Well, it's good to have you. We hope we'll have some continued discussions, and keep in mind that the hub is a good place to bounce ideas around and explore possible collaborations with others in the community, but you're always welcome to join these meetings too. And like I said, good to have you with us. So let's just to make sure we have some time, I'm going to move on if you don't mind, Jess. Could have a couple of other topics to get to here. Let's talk about the chapter audit. Sarah and or Masby, you want to take us through that? Sarah, you there?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. So I've been trying to get in touch with every chapter listed on the map, and I so far I've found that 3 of them might be duplicates. They like have their like 2 chapters are or yeah, the 3 chapters, there are separate listings, but with the same name and information. And then, so far, just with emails, 48 of them have gotten back to me to say that they are active, and 8 of them have gotten back to me to say that they are no longer active and would like to be removed from the map. And 28 of them, I got email responses saying either that the email was invalid and no longer in use, or that the email
I'm
had
sorry,
my email blocked.
how many had email problems, Sarah?
28 of them that my email was blocked, or that their email was invalid and no longer in use. So yeah, and then there are a couple of chapters that are or I'm not sure how many, but there are chapters that are not on the map. And then there are a couple of other chapters that I know are active that have not responded to me yet. And then others I'll have to track down on Facebook or in other ways. But yeah, I would love to hear your insights, Masby, and if you can help with this.
I think I know the duplicate chapters you're referring to. If I remember correctly, it was a chapter in France, not the main one. There's a secondary one, and the chapter leader is the leader of that chapter, and the one in Luxembourg, which is like I don't know, a 20-minute drive. So I assume that's where the duplicate chapter is that you found. When I helped, sorry.
Sorry. Wait. Hold on. Wait, something is happening with my Zoom. Are you still there?
Yeah,
We're
we
still
are
here.
here. We hear you
Okay.
in all your glory.
Okay. Sorry, just okay. Sorry about that. The duplicates that I have listed are one called Woody's Workshop, which is listed twice, and then a chapter in Taiwan.
Okay, so those are clearly different cases, and they probably should be resolved.
Yeah.
Regarding the audit process, I assume I was asked here to remind everyone about my automated proposal idea.
Yes, please.
So that was quite a while ago. That was with Bob and Ben. The idea was we didn't really flesh the idea out, but the idea in general was to send automated emails to chapters every quarter, 2 times a year. We didn't land on a specific rotating schedule. The idea was that if the chapter did not respond within that time frame, so if you were sending every quarter, they would have a leniency of 3 months to respond. During the next cycle of sending out audits, the ones that have the chapters that haven't responded to the previous audit would then be somehow marked on the map as we try to come up with something that didn't say we have no idea what's going on, but some kind of let's call it
Yellow
green
flag.
chapter, the one that responded, and a yellow one that didn't respond.
Right.
And then we would give them another cycle yet again. And at that point, we would probably just remove them from the map in any chapter list and mark them as inactive until they manually reached out. And at that point, they would be reinstated.
And these emails that you're sending out, Masv, is it simply a ping to say, hey, are you still there? Are you still active? Or would it have other sort of structured data that we're trying to collect? You know, what have you been doing?
That was the so that was the whole idea. I believe the map Patrick left. The whole idea was the e-NABLE API. which is now only Badger pretty much related.
Okay.
But that would have tied into the chapter portion of the API, which would have made the data collection a lot easier than it is now. And the whole idea was that the ping audit would be, we would have all, so if we were to send it every quarter, each so the first, let's say, 3 quarters would be just a pretty much general ping, maybe like an auto-filled form of how many chapter members, devices, that kind of stuff, a very, very rudimentary and simple form. And then once a year we would send a broader scope form. So perhaps give feedback on devices, rate the devices that we offer in order or whatever. Again, we didn't flesh this out. This is why I'm trying to remember what we were thinking about anyway. But more a general, a broader form that would help feedback into our processes and figure out what's better for the community. That was the idea. Probably the scope of it was a little bit too large, and it was mostly hinged on what are our actions when chapters don't respond. And as Sarah has probably clearly seen, if we automate this removal process, we will lose the vast majority of our chapters on our map, I believe. And that is where we left it off. And then Bob left, Ben left, and it's just been floating around as an idea since.
Still seems like a good idea.
The problem was that we couldn't come up with the agreements on the specifics, on the timeframes, on the audit questionnaires, on the repercussions, and all of that stuff. We never came to an agreement.
I have a thought on that, which is the basic notion of a quarterly ping, where we track that and we show last activity, for example, as a tag, just to allow people to get a sense of how current the information is, and the ones whose last activity is, let's say, 6 months or more ago, is really good, simple. That seems like a no-brainer. The questionnaire, people are really loath to deal with questionnaires, and in some ways I think it's much less important. So if we went forward on this, I would suggest that we do it not with a whole bunch of auxiliary data. First, put that in place, which would address the issue that Sarah has now made great progress on sizing. And then we can add additional questions or follow-up questions to the ones who prove that they are alive in a later stage.
I have another comment here. I think this is I'm thinking about a comment that was made recently by Thierry, the chapter leader in France, where he was trying to reach out to several chapters, and he went to the chapter map and he found the people in his area, and he reached out, and he basically was unable to contact several of those chapters. And so maybe we think about what Masvi described, where we're sending these periodic pings, but we simply, maybe we don't go as far as dropping them when they don't respond after a certain period of time. Maybe it's just a matter of having an indicator on the map that says, okay, so for example, if a chapter responds if they responded to the latest email inquiry, then there's a label that says, currently active or something like that, or confirmed active. And then when they don't respond, there's, maybe some indicator that says, last confirmation of activity, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months ago. We just put an indicator of how long it's been since that there's been some confirmation of activity. And that way, at least when people are browsing the chapters, they at least can say, oh, well, this chapter hasn't, been confirmed in, 24 months. I'm going to go look for somebody that I know is active. At least it would help people to kind of zero in on those that are known to be active. It's just a thought.
I just want to say, for 2 cents, as someone who was learning about your org and was actually exploring the map, I feel like that would be super helpful, because I've seen a lot of organizations, specifically at universities, where I can't tell if it's a student from 8 years ago who started it and has graduated. So I just think that like user need standpoint, that seems really helpful.
So
Yeah,
I
and the
think
whole
that
policy
there are quite a few ideas floating around. I do believe there is value in hiding those chapters and not showing those who are clearly dead. Especially as Chad said, there are so many education-based chapters that are dead and will never be back. I do not see a value in showing them in our community map because they're gone and they will never come back. But that is probably a subject that can be discussed further. But the whole idea is, if we were to move forward with this, we just need to figure out the specific rule set that we want to apply and stick to it. Do we hide maps? Do we hide chapters? The period on in terms of how all of that stuff. And I am available.
And it might just be a matter of the number of pings. Like I think you said that after the, second quarterly check-in, if they don't respond, we take them off. Maybe it's, after the third or fourth non-response, then we drop them. But yeah, maybe it's just a matter of agreeing on that number. And of course, there's always then the option of reinstating them. If somebody reaches out and says, hey, why am I not on the map anymore? We could always, get them back on there very easily. So I like
the
that
unfortunate
idea.
thing is that what we need to clearly define is what are those steps. Like right now, as we're seeing, emails are bouncing back.
Right.
So do we just de facto call that dead, right? Because there's no way to contact them. Yes, now as Sarah is saying that she will try to go through Facebook and everything, but it is on the chapter leader's responsibility to provide updated contact information if those change, all the kind of stuff. So
Right.
This is where we ran into this recursion of we need to then clearly define those rules and inform our chapters about those rules, and do we want to define those rules and all of that stuff. So I would ask Sarah if you could please maybe we could work together on this and try to come up with a fair set of rules that could be later brought to the community for approval. I still volunteer my time to do this. We just need to finally define what we're doing.
Yeah, I would be happy to work with you on that. I think that's great. Another thing to think about too with sending out quarterly inquiries is the format, because I know that Adam and I sent out a survey to chapters over benchmark a while ago, and there was a very, very low response rate. And, we had been kind of hoping to use that for an audit. And even, for me with Gmail, where it's a normal email and Gmail automatically, can translate the content to, I've had a higher response rate on Gmail than I have with a large
I understand. Yet
email
again, I
from
believe
benchmark that goes out to
this is the
everyone.
case of informing chapters and the leaders
Yeah.
of this subsequent change, that this will happen. This is the
Yeah.
schedule. This is what will happen if no one responds, that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot
Okay.
of communication that needs to be done well ahead of time once
Yeah.
we clearly define those rules. And then the hope is that they will respond and then they will. So I would sort of put it this way, that the audit that you're doing now is a good precursor to, we know who we can contact and get that feedback from.
Okay.
And the ones that we don't, again, this has to be a community decision, what we do about those chapters that just don't respond at all. Maybe we do it
Yeah.
now.
All right, so Masvi and Sarah are going to work on that, and I'd be very happy to provide any input if I can help there, guys. I'm envisioning kind of a process flow diagram that might help us with the branching logic of how we handle things. Just let me know if you want any additional collaboration there. We're about out of time
Thank you
here.
both.
Yes, thank you both for working on that. I think it'll be very helpful. There are a couple of other topics we didn't get to. The U.S. State Assistive Technology Program, Adam's going to be working on the space and the hub for that, so we'll get an update from him soon, hopefully. There's a note here that Adam's going to be attending a virtual event on June 18th for the international AT makers, and that's also, I guess we'll get an update from him on that later. We didn't have time today to talk about some of the strategic planning topics that we had recently merged into these meetings, which gets into some of the funded initiatives. I'll just say that Morgan and the team that was brought in for working on the new website and matching platform have been active. We've been having weekly meetings, and people have been sort of allocated tasks, and that is moving forward. We'll give you more of an update on that next time, but the team is
Thank you.
engaged and running, and work is being done. So that is proceeding. And I think we'll just have to talk about the rest of these next time, since we're sort of out of time for today. Anybody have anything that we need to touch on before we wrap?
Well, I
Okay,
see
then
that
we will-
Sarah says we need to focus on outreach right now.
Well, there was a
Um,
question.
Oh,
I
I'm
was just
sorry.
responding to a question
Oh,
in the
okay,
chat.
got it.
Oh, I didn't see that, sorry.
Yeah.
Seeing that toolbar.
Uh,
Oh, here it is, chat, okay. Need to focus on
I'm
that.
also a new participant. I don't know if I joined in at the end of the meeting. It's 11 o'clock here in Panama.
Yes.
Hello,
I'm
Matt.
starting a. Hi, nice to meet you guys. I've just a quick introduction. I spoke with Ian this week on Monday. He told me about the town hall meeting, so I tried to join in today. I'm trying to set up something with the National Institute of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation. I'm giving a presentation on the 18th. He sent me 2 hands, and I'm going to be showing like 40 of the doctors there. And the goal is to work with the government for them to, through the Ministry of Health, with whom we have resolutions already passed, to begin producing hands in the fab labs around the country, and working with them with rehabilitation specialists in those close proximity to the fab labs to have ongoing trials with different patients. That's the plan for our pilot program.
That's wonderful, Matthew. I'm sorry we are kind of out of time here, and I'm gonna have to get to another meeting. I would really like to hear more about this. Perhaps you could join our next town hall, which will be in 2 weeks, I
Sure.
believe.
Yep,
That would be great.
definitely.
And-
Yeah. Yeah.
And Matthew,
This-
I'm gonna put in my email, because I'm gonna be in Panama July 2nd to 7th. In connection with Eco Restoration Alliance, but it would be great to meet, and if you want, lend any kind of support I can to your activities while I'm there.
That sounds wonderful, at least to meet some of the key actors. I was introduced to you, actually, your name via Mickey Keats in 2016, and we actually had a student here receive a hand who was an 8-year-old boy. I'll put my email in the chat just to follow up.
Great.
I've put my email there as well. I coordinate and send out a newsletter with some of these meetings. So if you'd like to be added to the newsletter, I can do that. And just so you know that all of our meetings are on Eastern Standard Time for the US. So
Which is to say, for us, the meeting is just ending. It's noon for us
Yeah.
now.
I'm glad I caught the tail end, but I'll definitely be on
Yeah,
the
I'm glad you
next
did
one.
too. I look forward to hearing more, Matthew. Okay, everyone, I gotta run. Thank you all. See you next time.